Okay, so we are going to record in the cloud and get our screen lined up the way we like it. It's great to have you. I'm excited to talk to you about what we're going to be doing today and get you started. We're learning about how AI can be an interactive partner in student learning. And I was really motivated to have this session because I wanted to really just share what some of the work is being done already at this college. So you're going to hear about some of that, but also to keep us thinking about the different ways that we can be using technology, especially AI technology. So I'm going to jump into the session and I'm hoping that you all will get off mute, type something in the chat. All of that should show up for us. We should be able to see that when it's happening if you're joining us from another location. Aaron and Brooke are here in the TLC with me, so we have a high flex learning environment today, which is always fun to play with technology. I know some of you know that all too well. So we have a Woo Clap, and if you haven't done a Woo Clap before, I'm going to invite you to join the Woo Clap by clicking on the QR code. You can use your phone for this. Usually the phone is like the easiest way to do this.
It is.
And if you don't want to use your phone, you can go to wooclap.com and go to the event code that you see on the screen. And as people join that WooClap, I'm going to see in the bottom right corner of the screen that I'm sharing the number of people that are in the WooClap. This is not for a grade, and you can answer all the questions anonymously, but it'll be a fun way for us to just take the temperature on a couple different topics. Did you join? Are you in?
Trying,
I just went to.
I may not have paid my monthly bills, getting a little slow.
I'm pretty sure that you'll be okay.
It's just.
Oh, it's
Are you
loading.
having luck?
Are you on the Wi-Fi?
Want to be compromised?
Well, it looks like our friends and neighbors online are able to get in, but you guys are not, which is not super fun. You can weigh in on the questions, I suppose, even if you're not on the WooClap. I love that we've got.
And then it goes right back to this screen.
Okay, you're fine where you are.
Oh.
That's perfectly fine. If you get that blank screen with just the blue, because there's no question up yet. Yep,
Okay.
yep. So I'll go to the first question and we'll see if yours reloads, Aaron.
Okay.
And you can always answer with Brooke too.
Okay.
So our first question is me just asking you how you would describe your use of AI. And I've got some different options here. See if you can fit yourself into one of those buckets. How would you describe your use of AI? And this could be for personal or professional uses. Either one.
Let's say.
You guys submitted.
Yep.
Great. So let's see what our survey says. It looks like we've had 5 of our 6 participants answer. So we've got some people who are using it multiple times a week or even daily. And we've got a couple people who are using it less than that. Okay. So that's good to know, just kind of thinking about who we are in the room. It can be helpful sometimes to have that understanding of where everybody's at. So keep that in mind as we're engaging and asking questions. But again, please ask questions anytime. Okay. Here's what I'm hoping we can do today. We're going to start by actually doing something with AI technology. And I'm going to have you participate in a chat session for a few minutes. And then we're going to talk about what that was like. And then I'm going to talk about different use cases, as I mentioned earlier, of teachers here at the college who are already using the technology in the way that we're going to practice. And then I'm hoping to finish up, we can kind of think about, ideate ways that we could use it in our own classes. So by the time you leave, hopefully you've got some ideas of ways you could try implementing it either this summer or maybe in the fall. So let me ask you one more WooClap specific to the way we're going to use it, and then we'll jump into the chat. Are students in your course or program currently working to develop their communication skills?
Just in general?
Just in general. I mean, if you're working in a program specific area, you may have very specific skills, but just in general. do you think? We got some people who are still thinking.
It's not working.
You got a finicky connection today.
Six. Since I teach communication,
Yeah, I mean, I would think that you would be doing it a lot.
we think, but
So we've only got 4 who've participated, but I think the answer is pretty
Trying.
clear.
trying
Yeah.
to.
Erin's a reluctant joiner for the moment. You'll get there. So we can agree that communication is a pretty important, and I'm recognizing that my camera is probably driving you guys nuts. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. We can agree that communication skills are pretty important. It's one of our ILOs. We know that our students need to improve their communication skills, whether they're written communication skills or oral communication skills. Today, in this session, that's really going to be the area of focus for how we're going to practice using AI as a vehicle for helping students improve their communication skills. So with that in mind, I'd like for you to go into a chat, and I'm giving you kind of like an easy path to use Chat AI. If you use the link that I put into our Zoom chat, or Erin and Brooke, you guys got this on the email. You can go to chat.openai.com. It's really easy to type that in, but I'm also going to put the prompt into the chat. So get into the Zoom chat or check your email if you're in the room to get the prompt. I'm going to give you the prompt, and this prompt is for you as an attendee in this session. This is not a prompt that you would use with your students. This is very specific to this session, and you may feel like reading it before you actually start this activity. But we're all going to try this. And I'm going to put a timer on, and I'm going to ask you to give yourself, I don't know, 2 minutes using Chat AI, Chat GPT to play with this. Continue your conversation later if you want, but we're going to move on in the activity. So I'm really curious to hear what that was like for you.
It was annoying because essentially it set up the situation where you're getting butted all the time, and
Yeah.
there's a constant, excuse or whatnot. And so, yeah, I think I tried to offer up like 6 different solutions, and there's always sort of a new excuse coming, but I think that was intentional. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. I crafted the prompt to make it intentionally frustrating for us. Rachel, it sounds like your student, your chat student had a lot of excuses. Yeah, I'm curious
Yeah,
to
a
hear.
lot of life demands that were standing in the way of any intervention that I offered.
Anybody else want to jump in? What was that like for others?
Yeah, mine was the same way. I kept offering a solution and it was like, no, no. And so finally I was like, yeah, it sounds like you're just asking me for permission to drop out of the class, but it has to be a decision that you make. And it was like, yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of came to that point too, where it was like there's nothing else to do but to suggest, like, well, maybe this doesn't fit into your life at the moment, but I feel like I shouldn't say that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, just like in a conversation we're having with real students. Yeah, for sure. Anthony, you're saying it felt like talking to your 7-year-old? And then I see Mary, I'm confused. It said you needed to pay?
Yeah, it did. It let me have a dialogue. Maybe we had about 3 or 4 interchanges, and then it said I needed to pay. So
Like chat came back in and said you had to like up your account? Okay, gotcha.
yes.
Well,
yes.
that's funny because I had like a 3 or 4 minute conversation with the free version yesterday and I didn't get prompted, but I can't tell you that that's never, like I'm sure it's very possible, especially in peak times. So, yeah, so it was a quick exchange for a lot of us, it sounds like, yeah. I am curious to know in terms of what you think went well, was there anything that you were doing as the teacher that you were like, hey, that's a good idea, like I gave them a good idea?
Well, it occurred to me finally, because I was, like they were saying, I was like, well, how long do I let this go on before I say, well, maybe this just isn't the time. So then I said, well, wait a second. I didn't say it like this, but why did you email me? Like, what did you have in mind? If you're saying there's no way, then what were you thinking when you emailed me?
Yeah,
Basically.
yeah, so it got you to a place of like almost wanting to confront the student's behavior head on. Yeah. Anybody else want to weigh in on what that was like in terms of what went well? I think we've heard what was challenging, right? We recognize what was challenging. It's not really fun to have a passive aggressive response time after time, which is kind of what you get with this kind of a prompt, right? And that was kind of engineered that way to give us that experience of which some of us probably feel like we have these, like, did it feel real? I guess that's my question for you really, is did it feel like an authentic exchange with a student?
To an extent, yeah. I don't think a student would go back and forth to the degree that the chat AI did. But yeah, to an extent, it did seem like like mine. I started out saying like, well, do you read the book, and they were like, oh yeah, it feels like I just stare at the page for 20 minutes and I'm tired after work and I feel like nothing's being absorbed into my brain. Like I've heard that so many times.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to share about what it was like to get on and do this chat? I know Aaron's just typing away over there. Are you actually in there chatting with the student now? How's it going?
Eventually I just told them I hear excuses.
You confronted it head on. What's chat telling you now?
Yeah, I guess that's what it sounds like.
Agreed. Yeah, fair enough. All right, so let me ask you this. You're in my position. You get to suddenly magically poof, you're all the directors of teaching and learning. Our department has expanded overnight. If you were working with a new instructor, would you do this activity with a new instructor to give them a taste of what it might be like when working with a student?
Yeah, that's
How
a good idea.
How could this be useful for a newer teacher?
It would give them opportunities to practice. Because these things, as we all said, are inevitable. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. Anybody else want to weigh in? Is this something that we could use as a training or a practice for somebody who's struggling in the classroom or even new in the classroom?
One thing that you might run into is that a lot of the things that it spits out about what's going on in its life and whatnot really just requires you to refer the student to like a success coach. So a lot of it results in like, well, you should talk to this person, you should talk to this person, you should
Yeah.
talk to this person. So I don't know if they'd be developing their own solutions in that case and helping people like work around life events, but
Yeah. If I play with this a little bit more before, if I do deploy this kind of a prompt in an orientation kind of fun little practice, I'm thinking I would prompt them to also use resources because you can upload files. So you could upload a website and be like, take a look at this website. What tools could you use that the Student Success Center is offering here? Or watch this video. What did you, because you'd get an instant response, right? Yeah. Kirby, you're saying absolutely. You think this could be used to train new teachers?
Yes, I do. I did not actually speak or like speak verbally to my chat GPT. I put it just typed in for
Sure.
the copy and paste. And I actually put it, I was like, I can't attend class due to my work schedule. And it actually came up with different, like a series of like 4 to 5 different questions to ask myself. Like, is the course online or in person? What kind of work schedule are you currently working with? Are you able to dedicate any time to the course, even if it's short, like 30 minutes a few times a week? Or like other things like that. So it kind of helps you think from different perspectives.
I like what I think I'm hearing you tell us that you actually turned it around and you played the part of the student and the chat was the teacher. Am I hearing that right?
I would agree, yes. And I actually
Okay,
found it
yeah.
very informative.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah, Rachel, the voice option at the bottom is pretty fun. And I think that again, it may work better or worse depending on bandwidth and stuff like that. I know the paid version it works pretty well with, so yeah. Faith, I challenge you to see what happens when you tell the student to take the class later on. See what happens, that'd be fun. See if they're like, okay, thanks, bye, or if they keep engaging, right? Because part of the whole thing, if you play with these at all, you know that it's just gonna keep trying to engage. So it would be fun to see. Okay, so what I really want us to think about is not what you would do if you were in my position. That was a fun little experiment, but I'll take my job back. What I want us to think about, and I'm gonna skip over, this was just my sample. I did a little screen record in case we wanted to watch one, but I think we're past that now. Why would we do this, right? So here are several reasons why I'm making the case that we all need to be thinking about using this in this way with our students, whatever it is that we're teaching. First of all, we know that the students that we work with today, by and large, many of them Generation Z, need low stakes communication practice. They need opportunities where they're not going to be embarrassed if they say the wrong thing, but they can practice different kinds of exchanges. So as many times as we can get them having exchanges of ideas synchronously, that's still one step better than chat, right? Like a text messaging. So anytime we can give them synchronous or almost synchronous exchanges, this is a little bit better than that. So it's low stakes and it's almost real time. And then that third bullet point, I think, is also really important. This is individualized. So you can give all of them the exact same prompt, but they're all going to have their own individual discussions and they're going to go lots of different ways. So just like we did our little debrief, you can have a debrief with your students, whether you're doing this synchronously or asynchronously, and find out, and they can be helping each other. So you can use it in ways to give them both the opportunity to have individual, but then also collaborative learning moments. The variety, again, I think is really important. And there's so many ways that we could implement this, but you can give them one of these exercises every single week in an 8-week course or 16-week course, you know, have them have multiple experiences like this to give them that multiple exposure and practice. And then of course, the last point, this is what we call a soft skill, right? And I think all of us have heard enough talks from folks in the industry that these are the things that keep somebody from getting hired or getting retained. It's not do they know their stuff, it's how well do they communicate, how well do they work with other people. So even if we're teaching in a general education course, I think there's reason for us to be encouraging students to practice. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on these 5 reasons. Agree, disagree, want to, question or critique any of these?
Great to me.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Okay.
proposing, Sarah, that we suggest that they just learn how to have any conversation, or are we trying to like tailor this towards our particular discipline?
Well, I love the idea. It's a great question, Rachel. I love the idea of it being more content specific whenever possible. So like in your courses, you know, having them work with generative AI to have a discussion about a particular topic that's important in your content area could be a way to do it, right? Where maybe, and there's, I'll bring this up now, we can talk about it whenever, but this idea that, well, AI is gonna hallucinate, so you don't wanna rely on it as a tutor. And I think there's good reason to kind of question the expertise level. So I would say make it something that you know your students feel really, really confident about if they're gonna have content-based discussions. But quite honestly, your first question, a conversation about anything, yeah, I actually do kind of think it's good for them to have a conversation about anything. You know, part of my previous work was helping young adults have conversations. And we do have a lot of students who are just so afraid to engage with other people in any kind of synchronous way. This is a step into using AI in a way that they might feel is helpful for them. You know, so if they've got a tough conversation they need to have with a peer, or they've got a tough conversation they need to have with somebody at the school, and you're trying to talk to them about, well, what would it be like to go talk to this person, or like, could you go see your advisor about this? If they're like deathly afraid of going to see an advisor, why not set them up with a prompt to have an advisor? I mean, I do think we can be creative around it. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Yeah, Mary, go ahead.
Rachel, were you done?
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Okay, this is something that we do use in the chemistry classroom, and it does help because people are looking up topics, and the topics that they look up, they're generating their own prompts, and they're presenting it to the class. So it adds to the information. It's like having an encyclopedia in the lab, and so they can ask questions that are not necessarily calculations, because we found that the calculations are really wrong most of the time. But they can ask questions on pollutants, or they can ask questions to get a general knowledge on polymers or something or polymers in the environment, and then share it with the class. And so they're actually not communicating only with the AI, but they actually can communicate with the other people in the class too. So it works really well because they're getting the information pretty quickly, and then it's usually an overnight assignment, and then they're presenting it, the next time that they're in class. And other people are asking them questions like, did you ask so-and-so? Did you ask about this? Did you ask, what the size of the particles are? And so you do a lot of brainstorming, and I've noticed that the students do seem to really engage with the material a lot more than if I said just read page 200 to 225 and go from there. So, it's hard to do unless you have the time to do it. And in lab, we have the time to do it. In lecture, it gets a little tricky because, with 20 people in a class or 15 people in a class, you end up running out of time. But they really do enjoy developing the soft skills, in real time.
Yeah, and you've really taken it to that next level where you are using it for content area knowledge. And because the way that you assign it and the way that you're having your students vet that knowledge, it's working really well for you. And so, I'm suggesting what is potentially a lower stakes experience because the content knowledge isn't as critical, right? Like it's more about the communication aspect of it. But I think that it's really awesome that the students are utilizing it as both a tutor and a conversation partner in your class. It's great. Thanks for sharing that, Mary. Anybody else have any comments or questions about these bullet points before we move on?
Yeah, I think maybe requiring them to use the voice option would be helpful, because I'm not so sure, like with the amount of online time that they have from like childhood on, I'm not sure that like online communication and like typing stuff out is necessarily where they feel like they can't make gains. I think it's more like the face-to-face thing. I don't know. Does chat AI, it doesn't generate a voice back to you, does it? It just spits out words.
It can. The free accounts don't work at that level.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Erin, do you want to weigh in on what Rachel's suggesting, that we do what we can to promote the voice? You're the communications instructor in the call, so I'm gonna ask you as the expert. Rachel's saying, you know, they do a lot of typing already, they do a lot of texting already. Could we make this more challenging and a growth experience if we require them to use the voice piece? What do you think of that?
I think it simulates a real life conversation better than just chatting back and forth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Getting used to speaking your thoughts and ideas is a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Rather than just text alone.
Yeah. There's still the opportunity to edit before they hit the send button, even if they do the voice upload, but yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you suggested that, Rachel. Well, let's take a look at 3 use cases. These are 3 instructors here at the college who are doing this, and they agreed to let me talk about them because, you know, for the good of the whole. So I'm bragging on them with the hopes that we can all learn from them together. So here's our first one. Dan Rickert, he teaches in our IT area. And of course you're like, well, yeah, he's teaching IT. Of course he's using AI. But even our IT teachers have to think about how they're going to use this. This course, Tech Support Functions, is a course where the students are expected to develop their professional assistant skills. Like that's the whole point of the course, is how do you help somebody with technology? So this is the perfect practice tool for that. Many of these students are going to end up in service roles where they are using a chat feature, or they're looking at several chat features that are AI powered and then moderating those to help people, or they're answering a phone, right? And so think of this as like a class that's similar to like a help desk role if they were working in the profession. He wanted them to practice developing those professional communication skills. And I couldn't figure out how to write this the right way, but he wanted them to have challenging customers. So he was prompting the chat to behave in ways verbally that maybe you would say would be like a rude customer or an irate customer. And so that was something that he was having some challenge with in the prompting side of it, but he really wanted the students to get stuck with a customer who was being kind of difficult, right? And let's think about why we wouldn't want to do that with real students. Right? Think about having students do that with each other. I mean, I totally would have done that because I'm that kind of I was like, yeah, just be a jerk to each other. But that's probably not the best way if we've got an alternative. So that was why he did it this way. He had students do this both in his synchronous and his asynchronous sections. And so for his asynchronous, it was an assignment. He put the prompt into the LMS and they did it as an assignment, and then they shared their chat history with him for credit. He spent a lot of time prepping this exercise. So he spent, you know, he said 3 up to 4 hours just practicing and experimenting on his own. And I think it was mostly because of that tone piece, like just trying to figure out how to get the tone right. And he also had his prompt had built into the part of the prompt was that the chat was going to tell them if they did a good job or not helping. So that was part of the prompt. He was interested in seeing how long the chat went on. And what he noticed was that when the chat customer thought that their situation was resolved, you know, he looked at how many exchanges had to have taken place, or like that time lapse. And he said the students who were really good at tech support had very quick chats. And the students who didn't really know how to help people, they had to talk through. And this is the thing, I mean, we've all been on a call with somebody, right? When it just takes forever because we can tell this person knew or whatever. He did have one student, and this is really interesting, especially considering the content area. He had a student refuse to participate. They said they were morally opposed to AI.
Oh, I've had that.
And so they refused, and he opened it up. He said, great, let's talk about an alternative assignment that you could do that would simulate this same kind of thing, maybe with a real person, or write it out or whatever. And the student just took a 0. So he wasn't satisfied with that, but this was the first time he tried it in class. What are your thoughts? Any comments, questions to this use?
Curious about the moral opposition.
Yeah.
They're
Especially
just
since they're an IT person.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I get it on some level. I asked my I chatted with this thing a little bit more, and I asked it to come up with 3 potential solutions. I said, if you can come up with 3 potential solutions, I can help you brainstorm more. And spit out 3
Nice.
options.
Nice.
Said drop the class, ask for an extension, or give up on grades and just try to pass.
Yeah. I think that's a really clever remix of what we were doing, Rachel, and good for you for pushing the chat. I'm looking at Faith's and Mary's comments in the chat too. Faith is saying she thinks it could be a good assignment for them to have to write a professional email, right? So the student, or maybe the prompt, do you want to unpack that more, Faith? Because I want to make sure I articulate it correctly.
Yeah, I had put that in before we started talking about dance. So I was just, when we were looking at those soft skills, you know, one of the things I feel like one of the hallway conversations that always happens is how unprofessional our emails are.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about, after you gave us that prompt, if for the summer, since I have a fully online class, if one of their first assignments could be use AI to create a professionally worded email that has the course number and the section number and all of that, asking for an extension or something. Just because those fully online students, sometimes I feel like we get really poorly worded emails.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess your chat prompt would be that the students would feed in would be like to tell chat or I know you use Gemini, tell Gemini like you are playing the role of a community college math professor. Respond to this student's email only if with an agreement, only if they include the following features. So you could set up the prompt to be looking for certain things. And depending on what how the student formats the email, then the chat would give them a response and then they could send the response to you or the whole chat or whatever. But if you wanted the chat to play a role, the role the Gemini would play would be the instructor, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely gives me something to workshop.
Yeah, it could be fun. And again, that's what I love about this is you can practice, see how it goes. Mary, I'm hoping you're being sarcastic. Otherwise, you're living in a world that the rest of us do not recognize.
No, I mean, when I'm doing a topics class in chemistry, you know, that has to do with something that's not a calculation, the students really honestly do like doing AI assignments. They really do like it. So they're looking at it as, well, this is different. This is kind of, you know, this is something that expands their horizons. And honestly, the regular assignments that I have, yeah, there's a lot of resistance to doing the regular assignments, although for some reason this spring, there really isn't a lot of resistance. For some reason, they work together really well. And we go over the assignments with them so they know that this isn't like a high stakes, you know, assignment. But so that really does help. But what I've noticed recently is I'll give them like a bunch of topics that are going to be on the test. And they've been putting them into, you know, lots of different AI, generative AI programs, and they are generating their tests. And so what they're doing is they're getting together and they're sharing their tests. So instead of me having to write up a practice test, they're just sharing their tests. Now, the problem, of course, is that sometimes the problems are poorly worded or the answers are just wrong. And so they have learned to look at generative AI with a little bit of skepticism, which I think is really healthy, you know, because, you know, maybe in 5 or 10 years, there won't be that kind of, you know, every single problem might be wrong kind of thing, but now there is. And so they look at it like, okay, well, this is generating me questions that I know I need to be an expert at, you know, these topics. I know she's covered it. I know we need to know how to do it, but this gives us more examples. And then they kind of share it amongst themselves and see whether the examples are right or wrong. So it kind of works in several different ways, but it definitely works as a collaborative, you know, assignment. Mm-hmm.
You know, my favorite part about everything you just said, I never heard you say the word I. All of that is the students engaging with the material and each other. And you are in a different role in that scenario. You're not absent, but you're like way off on the side and letting them own their own learning in a way that maybe we haven't always felt like. I mean, you just said you're not the one having to create the practice test. So what a great experience for you to just be able to monitor and correct and guide from the side. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, let's move to the second example. I think you'll appreciate this one. Andy Craven teaches in our human services department here, and our human services program. And she is doing something really cool with interviewing techniques class. And so I want to share with you, she's got this class is, teaching students who are going to be working with individuals how to improve their communication so that they can use specific interviewing techniques in a mental health setting, right? And so it's a high, any of us who utilize mental health services or know people who know that it's really important that these people understand how they're communicating and do it in a way that's non-threatening and accepting all the good stuff. So she's able to, instead of again having role play with students back and forth with each other, she's able to use prompts to set them up to have these exchanges with clients where they practice these skills. And she is doing this in a synchronous way. She sets it up where they have a 5-minute chat and then they stop and they debrief and talk about what things are happening, what's going well, what's challenging. And then she usually gives them a little bit more time to continue the chat. She's working with students in really a high flex classroom. So she has some students who attend through Zoom and some students who are in the classroom, but they're all on together. They're all in a synchronous format. And so during this time, she's having the online students will occasionally share their screen with her so she can see what's happening. And then her in-person students, she's walking around and checking on their screen. So she's just kind of monitoring. She spends about an hour usually each time she's getting this ready to, again, do some prompt engineering and experimenting on her own. She always likes to run through it and she tries to do it a couple different ways. And that chat length, again, she did mention to me that it kind of depends on where they are in the class. So if they're running out of time, maybe it's shorter, but she tries to give them, 10 to 12 minutes to do this activity. She has experienced something, and this was actually mentioned in Dan's too. I didn't really expand on it. Both Andy and Dan have had Chat GPT, that's what they're using, have had the chat self-censor. So because of the way it was programmed, there's a level of difficultness that the chat refuses to go past. So if we try to prompt the chat to be very angry or to be explicit with its length, it won't do it. And she said she actually watched with one student, the chat started responding and then erased it. Like it broke itself. It just decided I can't say that to this user. So that was really interesting to her, and she doesn't know exactly how to work around that yet, although there's probably some other tools that would help. And then she did have a student who read a chat response and then became emotionally dysregulated. The nature of these exchanges can be really sensitive, and she calls it trigger warnings. She often gives content warnings at the beginning of class. Like, remember, we were talking about sensitive stuff. There's topics that are going to come up with clients that are challenging. Take care of yourself, leave if you have to. So she did have a student walk away from the chat experience because of their own personal response in the chat. So yeah, again, just another, very specific example of utilizing the chat for professional communication skills in a skills-based course. Any comments on this one?
Will the AI say bigoted things?
It's programmed not to say bigoted things or hateful things. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
It's programmed to be polite and to follow, the models it was trained on. So now
Okay.
I haven't used Grok. Have any of you used Grok? It's Elon Musk's chat tool.
No.
It's
Right.
apparently a lot more snarky and sarcastic and probably will do some things that the other models won't do.
Probably definitely says bigoted things.
Anthony, you want to expand on Grok is good? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, the newest Grok, I don't know if it's version 3 or 3.5. It's really, really good. It's got this deep search function and it has a think function. So you could just like ask it a prompt and it'll give you a normal kind of AI prompt and it'll kind of match your tone. So if you're snarky when you write, it'll kind of match that back. But if you do something like think and ask it a question, it'll just start going and it'll tell you how long it's working on the problem and it'll give you like a crazy detailed answer. Yeah, I've actually been using Grok. I'm tutoring a couple of students that are studying for the TEAS test. So I'm just having it make like cheat sheets and practice tests and pulling from stuff, and it's been wonderful. Chat GPT I used for a while, and you kind of get to a point where that it starts feeling like recycled. Grok kind of seems to be a little, stays fresh.
Brooke was asking, is Grok free? Is there a free version?
I believe there's a free version. I find that all the free AI versions are roughly the same, what they're given. But I've paid for ChatGPT and I've paid for Grok, and I canceled my ChatGPT.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's the tricky part right now is like, I think it's okay to pay for one personally, but I'm not really ready to pay for more than one. Cause it starts to get expensive, for sure. Anybody else want to weigh in on, I know Faith's using Gemini, other chat tools and what their take is on it? Go ahead.
Do we have access to a paid version?
Not through, like you
Okay.
could potentially through your department budget,
Yeah.
you could ask for your department budget to cover it for sure. I cover it in my department for my team.
Do you?
And they use it multiple times a day.
Is
so
that chat?
We use Chat GPT, yeah. We have a team account, so we can all see each other's chats and we can crowdsource out of even our own stuff, which has been helpful within the team.
Kind of related, I guess. We use Otter AI in the library too for
Yeah.
transcriptions and video to text. That's a wonderful tool.
Yeah, Otter's been really helpful for a lot of people. That's part of the that's different than Read AI. Yeah, Otter AI is a separate application. Are you guys, that's a paid one you're using?
Yeah, we go out of the library budget for it each year. It's like a little over $100.
Yeah, it's worth it for sure. So with this particular class, I want to just again point out that considering the skills that her students are needing to develop, this has really been a game changer for Andy, and she's used it 5 or 6 times, she said, this semester with this course, and she's using it in her other courses too, but it's just given that repeated practice that I mentioned. So the students know they can do real-time application and then she can kind of check in. And that's different, certainly different than it's been in the past where she was having them role play or even just respond, everybody responds to the same like start of a conversation or practice. So I've got one more to share with you, and this one is also again a professional communication based. This is coming out of our continuing ed side though. So 21st Century Policing is a course that's offered in the continuing ed side of the house, and Garrett Garden, who is our law enforcement training coordinator, he used this in a fully asynchronous course. And again, it was to practice those professional communication skills when working with individuals in the community. And it started, this one was really fun. It started because I just challenged him. I said, what would it be like for your students to have to respond to an irate community member about some like neighbor or something? I said, and so we just got on and we started playing with it, and he's like, I'm gonna try this. And so he popped it into a discussion forum or an assignment, and he just had the students do it a couple times. They submitted a transcript of the conversation. He didn't spend a lot of time prepping it. He said it was about an hour, and he's planning on expanding it as he continues to work in the program. He's got a lot of building and revising to do here, but one thing he did mention that I wanted to share is in terms of that experimenting, he was trying to intentionally mislead or redirect the chat just to see what would happen, because he wanted to make sure that it stayed focused for his students. And so that was just his suggestion, is like, if you're prepping an activity like this, try to take the chat in the wrong direction. I mean, I think confronting the chat in the ways that we were doing earlier, it could be seen as that a little bit, but you know, really try to go down different rabbit holes and see what happens for yourself before you like let it loose on your students if you're wanting to use it as a communication tool. So yeah, so just another professional communication based one. I appreciated that this was a fully asynchronous experience, because, and I think that feels like maybe a little, I don't know, to some people that might feel like more risk because you're not with them while they're doing it, right? But Faith, you said that you think that you could use it in a fully asynchronous class this summer in this way, so I think obviously it could work for sure. Any comments on this one? Pretty similar. So let me just wrap up with some recommendations and then certainly open it up if you've got any other questions or anything you want to share. I've really appreciated folks sharing ideas. And we're going to ideate too. So I encourage you to think about the communication skills that you can see that your students need to work on, whether it's writing a professional email, practice asking for help. I mean, it really could be something that simple, all the way up to like something like Mary's doing, which is even a step beyond what I've suggested in today's session, which is, using it as a tutor or a study partner. Practice yourself with a prompt. Make sure that you're explaining to your students what you want them to get out of it, because I think there's some skepticism right now. Like, you just want us to goof off with, no, there's actually an intended outcome here. So tying it back to a program learning outcome or the institutional learning outcome, I think can help. I always encourage people to require the transcript or some way for you to verify that they had this chat. And then to also invite some sort of reflection, because that's really we're really getting at AI literacy still, and we will be for a while. As Mary said, that her students are learning that maybe, I don't want to call it the unintended outcome, but the indirect outcome is they're learning what they can trust AI to do, right? And so that's part of what we want to see come out of this is like, well, would you use AI in these other ways? And then again, if you've got the opportunity to encourage peer-to-peer interaction with the AI or after the fact, or teaching each other how to use it more effectively. And that's where, obviously we're going to be learning a lot as well. So those are all just some things to keep in mind as you try this out. Speaking of which, I want us to finish up with an open question in our WooClap. So your WooClap may have disappeared from your phone. You may have to re-engage it for a hot second, but the question should come up. I'd love for us to generate some ideas. So I'm just going to let you go, and I'm going to create the little list results. I'll put it up now. So as you start to put in answers, but how could you use AI chat sessions with your students? You can just type in your open answers. This is an open question. And we'll see what our ideas look like. And you can answer more than once. If you've got 10 ideas, I want to see them all. Mhm. Yeah, some stuff show up in our list here. This is great. Oh, the code for the WooClap, if you just go to wooclap.com, Kirby, and then the code is at the top of this slide, if you can still see that. B as in boy, NKUCE. Yeah, so lots of these are really they're kind of starting at this research or asking it a question, having it do something for me. I do see some exchange kind of approaches as well. Obviously, part of my interest is seeing you try it out with this exchange thing, but there's so many ways we could be using it. All these are great. We've got so many. I'm going to scroll. So I'm hoping I gave you something as you continue to throw ideas up there. That's great. Hoping I gave you something to think about today. Really enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm also going to stop recording.